Today's episode is sponsored by newspapers.com, the largest online newspaper archive. Newspapers.com makes it easy to find your family's story with more than 500 million digitized newspaper pages from the 1690s to today. Search for obituaries, marriage and birth announcements, photos, and more in papers from across the U.S., the UK, Canada, and beyond, stretching back 3 centuries. For listeners of this podcast, newspapers.com is offering 20% off a Publisher Extra subscription. Just use the code Genealogy Adventure at checkout. That code is Genealogy Adventure for 20% off Publisher Extra.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Genealogy Adventures. I'm Brian Sheffy.
And I'm Danya Williams on this very beautiful Sunday. How are you guys doing? How are you doing?
Hope, as always, you guys are having an awesome day. And as always, thank you for spending the next hour with us. And boy, do we have a show for you today.
Yes, we do. Today, we are so very excited to bring onto the show Miss Kenyatta D Berry. So say hello. Kenyatta D Berry is the author of the Family Tree Toolkit and a contributor to the groundbreaking 1619 project published by the New York Times. She was the 2019 honorary chair for Preservation Week and was named a newsmaker in American libraries. So guys, that's like equivalent to history makers and the things that they do. Kenyatta's vast knowledge in the areas of African American genealogy, enslaved ancestral research, and DNA have made her an invaluable resource. She has been featured in Black Enterprise, Good Housekeeping, Spartan Magazine, just to name a few. Kenyatta's work as the host on Genealogy Roadshow on PBS garnered over 1.5 million views per episode and generated enormous buzz surrounding her insight, understanding, and expertise. Kenyatta is passionate about bridging the gap between scholars and genealogists. As a result, she is actively involved in university studying slavery based at the University of Virginia. She's currently working with multiple universities, including Cornell, University of Pennsylvania, and University of Virginia, at the Freedom's Loom Project. She invites her fans and followers across the globe to join her as she ignites the desire in others to connect to their past, to find out who they really are. She is a native Detroit, a graduate of Michigan State University and Thomas M. Cooley Law School. She currently resides in St. Monica, California. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's
I'm
absolutely
excited.
Our pleasure.
Yes. We have a slight break. We got a slight delay in the internet. So I wanted to let you know that. Yeah.
Okay. So can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. It just comes like a little bit fast or a little bit, but you're good. You're good.
Okay. We'll work with
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Audio is coming in on West Coast time.
For sure.
But again, thank you so much for the show, and I'm just going to get straight into it. So, starting from the very beginning, and it's the question we normally ask our guests: how did you even get involved in genealogy? How did it become a passion, and how did it just absolutely suck you in?
So I got involved in genealogy when I was in law school. And that started because I was dating someone whose family were very prominent. And so they were prominent in Augusta, Georgia, Philadelphia, as well as Raleigh, North Carolina. And he had the unusual surname of Dwelle, Dwelle. And I thought, well, they're prominent preachers, doctors, they will have some type of family history that's interesting, as opposed to my Virginia ancestors who were just farmers. And I just took a break between torts and contract law and decided to do research. And I looked up his family, and my first thing I found was an article, or entry, I should say, biographical entry in the history of the American Negro and his institutions. And I'll repeat that. History of the American Negro and his institutions, Georgia edition, had George Henry Dwelly, who was his second great-grandfather. And George, my ex, was George Dwelly. And so he was named after him. But in that biographical entry, it said his birth date. He was born January 26, 1833 in, I believe it was Columbia, Georgia. And that his father was a white man named C.J. Cook. His mother was an enslaved woman named Mary Thomas. And he was sold twice as a boy, once to Alabama. So once I got that information, I was pretty much hooked, because that's something, as you all know, doing African-American genealogy, you don't find that all the time. And I just decided I got to figure this out. I got to solve this puzzle. I got to uncover more information. And so unlike most people, I didn't start with my own family. I started with my ex-boyfriend's family. And I always joke that the best thing that came from that relationship was my love of genealogy, because that set me on the path that I am today. So.
So you actually came into genealogy with a really, really good transferable skill, good research skills, because not many people know this about me. I paid my way through university by being a litigation paralegal, which required a lot of research and a lot of fact checking. So even though it's a completely different field, it was a really, really good kind of foundation to apply to genealogy. Did you find that that really helped you as well?
Absolutely. I feel like having a law degree, going to law school, was the best thing I could have ever, like, I didn't even think, I never wanted to be a lawyer. Like, let's just say that I never wanted to be a lawyer. When I was in high school, we had majors at Cass Tech, where I went in Detroit. So I majored in business. In Michigan State, I majored in business. So it was like, I couldn't find a job because, of course, I was an only child, and I went to college and I partied a little bit too much. So my grades suffered, just saying. So when it was time to find a job, I was like, oh, wait, they're not hiring me at Accenture or whatever it was called, or Anderson. So I was like, I'm not going to go get an MBA. I was like, well, maybe I'll just go to law school, because I've studied business for so long. You know, I started reading Entrepreneur Magazine when I was 13. And law school was really important in my life because of the discipline that it applies, and because of the research skill set you have, and the writing. And it's been so helpful in doing enslaved research as it comes to, records with wills and estates, and being able to kind of cut through all the legal jargon that's in front of a document and kind of get to what you want to know, the meat of the document, right? Which are the names, the dates, the places, and things like that. So it has definitely helped me, and it's been very fortuitous, I should say.
Mm-hmm. So after you started doing the research for your partner, did you start to think, maybe I should look at my family, because I don't know what I'm going to find?
I did. So my family is a little, so my mom's side, so my parents were, and people who've heard me talk about this know this, my parents were never married. So my dad's last name is Jones. And my mom's last name is Berry. So my Berry side is from Georgia, but my mom's side, so my grandmother, is Kendrick, also from Georgia, but also there's her paternal side is Kendrick, but the maternal side, so my great-grandfather, Kendrick, is from Georgia. Great-grandmother's from upstate New York. So the upstate New York folks are the Virginia people. So I just really only kind of knew about that side of the family. And I knew that they were farmers in upstate New York, near Rochester, and that they were farmers in Virginia. So I kind of really didn't think they were that interesting, to be quite honest. Even after I did Georgia's genealogy, I was like, my family's okay. They're not necessarily going to reveal some exciting story, right? That has since changed. I now recognize them, and I've written about them a lot. But at that time, I just thought they were, just average, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And I think probably a lot of African Americans feel that way. I know from my father's Virginia family, and he's like 100% Old Dominion. They would, you know, in
Mm.
the 1870, they were mostly, not all of them, but most of them were sharecroppers. And I thought, not going to really find anything too interesting. But the further back in time I went, that's when the jaw-dropping nuggets started to fall into
Mhm.
place. So again, telling everyone out there, doesn't matter how humble your family may seem,
Yes,
you dig, you never know what you're going to find.
I swear.
exactly. Exactly. And I would say this, one of the things that I found out about my family in upstate New York, especially with newspapers, is that they the what is it? The black newspaper in New York. Why am I blanking on it right now? I'll think about it. But anyway, there's the black newspaper in New York would report on kind of all of the things that happen in upstate in different cities and around the state, as well as like in Pittsburgh and things like that. And I think it was our third great aunt was like the distributor in the little town of Leroy, New York, where they were from for the newspaper. And so all of our business is in there, right? So I know when we had family reunions. I know when we had like some Phyllis Wheatley Literary Society. I know who was sick, what was happening with the church, like all our business out there. And it's fantastic because I'm like, now I know, right? So these folks I thought were just farmers from Virginia in upstate New York didn't do anything. I get to like rebuild their lives through these stories that are told in the newspaper.
And those
That's
newspapers are
exactly what we do.
awesome because, in a
Yeah.
way, they mirror what was going on in the kind of white society pages in the black newspapers saying, oh, you know, so and so's daughter and her family are paying a visit and they're coming from this place and these are their kids. They're great.
They're
Oh, yeah.
fantastic. I love it. I love it. Yeah. Great resource.
So, if I can ask, what was it like receiving a phone call about the Genealogy Roadshow, and what was that whole process like? Because you were the first Black genealogist on TV.
So Genealogy Roadshow kind of happened or I won't say even organically. It was just I didn't receive a phone call. Oh, actually I did. I received an email. So at the time I was president of APG, so Association Professional Genealogists, excuse me, and um they were looking to hire genealogists in LA for this new show, right? So Genealogy Roadshow originally, from what I can recall, started in Northern Ireland. And so it was like the American version of it, right? What made it different is that they had subject matter experts, actually genealogists, as opposed to just a host, right? So if you think about television shows where you have hosts are typically people that you feed information to and just tell them what to say. They don't necessarily really know the background. They're not subject matter experts. So um, they called or emailed Kathy Hinckley, the executive director of APG, and they said, want to hire a local genealogist. She said, well, our president lives in LA. I want to meet with the team from Genealogy Roadshow. And I, put on my best East Coast gear. I had like my black dress and heels on. I was ready like I was going for a job interview and all this stuff. And I get there, and the two people I met were from casting, and they said, you should try out for the show. And I said, I don't do entertainment. I do technology, because I was working full time selling software, which I did the entire time I filmed the show. So I was like, I don't do that. And they were like, no, you need to go home and do a Skype. I was like, I don't think so. And they were like, yes, you need to. So they convinced me to do a Skype. I went and did a Skype here in my apartment in Santa Monica. It's decorated now a little bit better, but it was looking like an IKEA showroom at that time. And they ended up, so I did the Skype, and I was like, nothing's gonna happen from this. Like, I don't care. And so I don't know. I just kind of answered questions like I'm answering with you, and then just, didn't think anything of it. And then like months later, they were like, PBS loves you. And I was like, what is this shenanigans? So then I went on to film. I go on to film, and I'm working full time, like literally full time selling soft. Like I think my quota that year was 1.5 million, which is a small quota. So I'm working full time selling software. I'm filming on the weekends. They're flying Josh and I out. And August, the show's coming out September. August, we have a sales meeting, right? So the sales meeting, the VP was like, well, we need to, like a team building event or whatever. He's like, we need to name 2 things that people don't know about you, right? So I was like, well, this is the perfect time to reveal, but I've been filming a television show. So I put it on the slide that I wrote over 1,500 poems, which is true, and that I filmed a TV show, and everyone in the room had to guess who it was. So none of my colleagues could guess because they were like, who the heck has been filming a TV show in this room, right? And so yeah, like, yeah, coming on September. And so that's how my coworkers found out that I was actually on TV.
Wow.
And that's just how I got to Genealogy Roadshow. So it was, as I often say with things that happen to me, I don't find the work finds me. So
that's awesome. And I want to clarify one thing, because as you guys know, Brian introduced her as the first Black genealogist on TV. She is. And I say it like that because Henry Louis Gates is not a genealogist. He is a historian. His degrees are in history and English. He is not a genealogist. So I wanted to say that. I just wanted to clarify that, because every time Finding Your Roots comes out, the first thing you hear is, I want him to do my DNA. I want him to do mine. And yeah. So it just doesn't happen. I just want everybody to know that.
Yeah, no, we just wanted to make sure you got flowers.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I
have to drop my thing down for a moment. There's an emergency in my house, so I do apologize.
That's okay. Fine. So that really was a bit of serendipity, and I can only imagine that in terms of your professional practice, that just really kind of catapulted you on a real national level.
It did, and it was my first time on it was my second time on television, but prior to that, I'd actually filmed something for the Braxton Family Values TV show, and I think it was TLC or something like that. But I didn't make it on the show. I was on the cutting room floor, which was good for me. But yeah, it did catapult me in a way in which, I learned so much from Genealogy Roadshow. I learned just so much about presence and engagement and kind of just reaching far within yourself to bring the person connected to you across from you, right? Because you're sitting there and you have someone who's never been on television. You haven't been on television. And so I always had this ritual where I would go to say to everyone, I'd say, you're nervous. I'm nervous too. It's the 2 of us sitting here. We are either having coffee, beer, wine, tea, whatever it is. That's what we're doing right now. Don't pay attention to the 70 people that are staring at us or the camera that's flying past us while we're talking. Just focus on me and you having a conversation. And that was a way for me to calm my nerves and to get them to be engaged. And so that really changed the way that I started speaking, as a presenter at conferences. Genealogy Roadshow actually made me, I think, step up my game a little bit more in that area. And I really understood the level of engagement you need to have with your audience to connect to that person in front of you.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I loved about the American version, because as you probably know, I lived abroad for many, many years, and I'm actually very familiar with the Irish version, which went out on RTE TV. And the thing that I loved about the American adaptation is the wonderful thing about the Irish one was the camaraderie between the team. You could just feel it. It was, and it didn't feel contrived. It felt really natural. And I just loved that they really seemed to have captured that when they brought it over to here. Because you just get the real feeling that you guys are a team, that you're comrades, that you really enjoy working together.
Yeah, I mean, Josh and I, have been friends before that, and we were 2 genealogists thrown into television, and television and genealogy do not really mix, actually, in a way in which, how well, here's the thing, we like to do our research, right? We want to get it down. We want to take our time. We want to do but television wants it done yesterday. Okay. They're like, in 2 weeks, can you find somebody daddy? No, I can't. You know what I mean? So it's you have to they really wanted to tell yesterday. Whereas for us, we were like, we need more time. you know, we need more time to do the research. That's the only place where it doesn't mix, because if you don't have that time frame, because they have a production schedule, right? So you're trying to fit a square peg of research in a round hole and say, I need to find this answer in 3 weeks. And you're like, yo, if they've been looking for 30 years and they haven't found it, 3 weeks doesn't mean I'm going to find it.
Definitely
right?
not going to help. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
weird. But that gives us an insight. And I hate to bring, I mean, it's not that I hate to bring it up, but it gives us an insight on how finding your roots works. And it allows other people to understand that even though this research is going on and he's sitting there and he's flipping these pages and reading these books, it took them a while to find what they had to find. And that not only that, some of the stuff that they found real quick, and it might be wrong. And as researchers, we know that you can't find stuff right away, and that information just might not be correct. But
exactly,
they're looking at it. That is a great way to explain that and to help people when they're watching those types of shows, whether it's Finding Your Roots, the shows that Ancestry puts on every now and then, or what have you. If they just watch those shows now with what you just explained to them, that it should give them a better insight on how this actually works.
And not every research project is going to have that big TV reveal.
Right. No, not everyone. And so with Genealogy Roadshow, people would submit questions, right? So they had like maybe 3 questions that they would submit. And listen, a lot of times we could find the answer to one question, or we found a little nugget that wasn't even related to any questions. But that's what you were getting because it's television. And I remember New Orleans specifically because it was I never forget this. I've never seen for folks, I know someone's in the audience from New Orleans, but like on the Mississippi, we were standing outside and I could see like the rain coming. You know what I mean? Like just the clouds, like just the rain coming towards me. And dude, they're filming outside, and me, I'm like concerned about my hair, number one. So I see the rain in the distance, and I'm talking to him, and I'm revealing what we found. And he's like, well, once we stop, he was like, well, what about this? What did you find about this question or that question? Or what about this person? And I was like, sorry, we can answer that question. And the rain started coming. And so I just ran. I looked at Sharita, who's our hair and makeup person. I was like, are you coming with me? And I just started hauling to go for cover. I didn't answer this question because I was like, I told you what I had. That's it. That's all I got. And now I'm going to, get out of this weather. But I mean, it's things like that, right? You just cannot be answer sometimes. And people think one of the challenges I have is when people hire me to do research for them, they've been researching for 30 years, 40 years, and they tend to think that for some reason, if I put my hands on it, I magically can find the answer. And that's not the case. I mean, I'm a researcher like everybody else, right? I have access to the same level of records. Maybe somebody answered my email a little bit more if I put Genealogy Roadshow in the signature for archives or whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm still doing professional genealogy like everybody else. And, some answers cannot be found. You can't. And that's it. And television is all about showing you what we have and not what we don't have. Right. So we want to give you the information so that the audience can connect and say, okay, this is great. Look at this. I'm inspired. I want to do my genealogy. It's not about saying, hey, you had this question over here and we couldn't find the answer.
So I'm thinking the travel budget must have been huge. Because again, to remind our audience, whether you're watching on TV or on a device, the fraction of records that are online, and it's getting better, more and more are being added, but that's just the tip of the iceberg compared to all the available records that exist. So, I mean, I can only imagine you were being paid to go here, there, and everywhere, to literally go in the archives, go in the courthouses to find evidence.
So this is the way the research worked on Genealogy Roadshow, because we had some controversy between seasons 1 and 2, which I would not get into. Okay, but here's the deal. The first season, right, as I mentioned, I was working full time. So we had applications. People submitted an application. Listen, I got to sell $1.5 million worth of software. I don't have time to be looking through applications for people. Okay. Somebody else needs to do that. I was not going to do that. So the first level of kind of cutting through casting was the production teams. deal. The second part of that is so the second part of that is that we had a team of researchers that did second level research. So that second level research was basically, if they were selected, then what they would do is they would go through and see if they could find basic information in those folks. And once they found that basic information, then they talked to them and they were maybe have been selected for casting. So once they were selected for casting, then the researchers would do kind of additional layer. So I'd say like 1.5 layers of research. We were second level. Josh and I, we get assigned stories. We would look at the research from the researchers and then verify that and do additional research so we could actually present the story to the person and on camera. Okay. So we didn't necessarily have the time, because we both working full time, to go into the courthouses, to go into the records and do the research ourselves. That was what the team of researchers were for. However, the thing is, we still thoroughly checked that research, verified that research, and then did an advanced level of that research, right? So I want people to understand that while I was not digging through casting applications, I was not in charge of that. I was not looking through census records or vital records. But once a story got to me and it was my story to tell on camera, I verified that research and did additional research and then added what Lamont would say, Kenyatta drops knowledge to that story, because I didn't have the time to do that, because I was filming the show on the weekends. Literally, I'd be on the weekends with hair and makeup. And then I'd come back home on Monday and be like, oh, I'm just Kenyatta now. You know, I'm not talent anymore. I'm not on camera talent. So that's kind of the way it worked for the entire 3 years we filmed.
Mm-hmm. I just
want to apologize. Yeah, I was going to do it myself. We have somebody popping in through our YouTube feed, and we're trying to make sure that they're getting deleted. So we do apologize for any of these little unnecessary comments that are popping up.
Yeah, I'm just going to say this is the first time we've ever had to do this. To the person who's posting this disgusting spam, this is a family channel, and I hope you can sleep well at night. And that's all I have to say to you.
I'm not as nice as him. I'm not as nice as him. So
wow. Okay.
We are family friendly. Well, we are a family friendly show, so I'm keeping it family friendly. So it really does sound as though that was just an amazing experience for you.
It was. I mean, I learned a lot about myself. I learned that I enjoyed being on television. I mean, I would say season 1, I was sort of like, I don't know where this thing is going to go. So I just be like, you know, and not that I wouldn't show up and work. I absolutely took it seriously, but I just didn't know where it was going to go. I didn't know if it would be popular. I mean, it was PBS. I just had no experience with television. So I didn't understand it. And then once I saw the reaction to it, I was very much like, wow. And I couldn't see myself when I show premiered September 2013. And I remember I was at home in Detroit with my mom and my stepdad, and I was watching it, and like the show comes on, the intro comes on, and I like put my iPad up to my face and hid it because I couldn't even see myself on camera, like on TV. I was like so shocked. It was like I couldn't even watch myself. And my mom was like, I'm so proud of you. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm on television. And my mother doesn't drink. And anyone who knows me knows I love my wine. So she allowed me actually to have wine in front of her. That day. I know, right? I was very excited. I didn't drink too much, just a little glass. But I was like, okay.
You ain't really want to show her. So
I didn't really want to show her. No. I was like, listen, if I get to have this in front of you because I'm on TV, I'm gonna be nice about it. So but yeah, it was amazing for me. It was just it taught me something that, I just really understood and learned how important genealogy is to folks and their identity. I mean, the way in which people would change in front of me. I mean, it was in New Orleans, we had this one woman, and I remember, so we had, so to get kind of peel back the curtain with Genealogy Roadshow, we had the team of researchers that I talked about, and then Josh and I, and then when Mary came on, I think in second season, we would, do the second level of research, right? Verify the first level, do the second level. But we also had writers or story producers, right? So they would write our scripts for us. I was notorious for being the lawyer I am, for redlining my script. I'm not gonna say that word. And if you know any writers, redlining writer's script is not necessarily something they like, but I was notorious for it. So, because I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. And I remember I had this one, we had been working on this script. I was just I didn't like it. I didn't like the direction it was going in. And it was like one of the only times that I actually got on, like not in front of the camera, behind the camera. Because I was just so upset. And then everyone had to come and, when you're talent and you're upset, everybody has to come and check on you, right? So every producer known to man is running up to check on me in the makeup room and also this stuff. And I was like, fine. And so I just said, you know what, bump it. I'm gonna do what I want to do. I made notes on like an index card, went out there, and I'm talking to this woman. And I was going to reveal to her, I believe it's her second great uncle or something like that, had been sold twice as a boy in slavery. So I was going to reveal that to her. And her mother was with her. And this woman was very tall and regal. She was sort of like Maya Angelou. She was just like, she had such presence. And her mom was like a little tiny person like me, like my grandmother, like just, skinny and short and all that. And so she's telling about the pride and like Mardi Gras and all this stuff. And I just tell her the story, right, about her second great uncle. And she said he was 11. She looked at her mother and she said he was 11. Because he was sold when he was 11. This woman purchased him in New Orleans. And then him and another boy, I believe he was 12 or 13. And then ended up selling her relative for profit like a few weeks later. And she looked at her mother and it was like as if she was a child again. I saw this woman's entire demeanor change in front of me. And so everyone around me, the directors are like, where are we in the scripts? Now, mind you, I've thrown the script out the window. So they don't even know where we're going. And she just started crying. And one of the things about me on Genealogy Roadshow is that a lot of people felt comfortable crying in front of me. And so she started crying and I let her have her moment, and her and her mom. And I knew from that moment, and the other one with Gail Lukasik and the other one with the Tuskegee experiment, that I knew that these are things that change people. This information changes who they are, how they feel, how they understand their ancestry. And so that's what the show taught me. And that it made me I understood how meaningful and valuable the work is, that we're doing.
And for me, that's what made, and I hope that the executives you were working with got it. That's what made this show different than, say, Who Do You Think You Are? I'm not saying they didn't have Black people on that show, but I can't think of an episode that immediately sprang to mind. And what, our history comes with trauma. So you had a guest, you had a guest on the show that cried. And I'm not that they're here to answer the question. I'm just wondering if that changed their perspective about genealogy, that not every group of Americans has the same genealogy or journey with genealogy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They did. Who Do You Think You Are did have Black people. It wasn't a lot, but they did have Black people on this show. And I think to go piggyback off of what the two of you are saying, Lionel Richie had a reaction like that with his. And Spike Lee had a reaction like that with his, because that was the first time. And if you remember, I said that I saw Melvin Collier. So when I saw Melvin Collier on the show, I'm thinking he's this really great person, and he is. Don't get me wrong, he's this really great person. And then I turn around as I'm starting in my research journey, I find out I'm in the same group as him. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm in the same group as Melvin Collier. And, so it's that kind of thing, because Melvin did Spike Lee's. But then he gave us some interesting information about that too. We won't reveal that. But nevertheless, yeah, they had some, and there were, knowing the information that we know, I don't know if it was real or not. But yeah.
And I'd like Donnie to hop in after you answer the question, Kenyatta. So all three of us, we've been doing African American genealogy for more than a minute. how have you seen the interest amongst Black people in America change towards doing their genealogy?
I've seen it change a lot. I mean, I mentioned that genealogy and TV kind of don't mix just because of the time frame of research, right? We want to take our time doing research. They want it done yesterday. But genealogy television is a genre. And it has changed and brought interest into, even for African Americans, into researching their family history. I think also there's been, I've never had this, but I think for some people, there's been this stigma of slavery as if, oh, my ancestors were enslaved. So therefore it's like, I mean, slavery was bad, but I'm saying it's something that they feel ashamed of, right? And that's not how I feel about it at all, right? So, I have pictures there's only a few pictures in my apartment, and one of me graduating from law school, and then of my ancestors, and some of those, and those that are direct descendants of the enslaved, right? My enslaved ancestors. So for me, I kind of feel like the interest over the past, 10 years, or let's say 10 years or so, with digitizing, records on ancestry, DNA, and also television has helped people kind of realize this is something they can do. Most African Americans, I think, felt they couldn't do their research because there were no records, all the myths we hear all the time we speak and things like that. And just being able to show the pride in what it means to find your ancestors. And I think that's where the television piece comes in, right? With Who Do You Think You Are? Finding Your Roots in Genealogy Roadshow. If you can see with Spike Lee or Lionel Richie, or someone said Vanessa Williams was on Who Do You Think You Are? Like, if you can see those folks kind of change or feel a connection, then I think African Americans say, okay, well, I can do that too. And so I've seen it. I think it's been very helpful. The way in which genealogy, technology, and television are going.
I feel my thing is, as far as all of this is concerned, is that I think that I agree with what Kenyatta just said, as far as it being an eye-opening experience and people seeing those who are doing it, and they're like, yeah, I can do it too, and so on and so forth. But that's where it kind of switches. They don't see them being able to do it. They're like, oh, they have the money to do it, so they'll be able to get this stuff done or what have you. And I'm broke. I don't have a lot of money, but I'm doing it. And in doing it, I've gotten that same experience, if not a better experience that Lionel Richie or Vanessa Williams or Spike Lee has gotten, because I've been able to get this knowledge of not just who I am, but of my family and where they came from. And I think that's my thing. I want Black people specifically to really start doing that, because then if they do it, they won't be ashamed of their enslaved ancestors. Because they will see where their enslaved ancestors came from. They will understand that had they not fought that the way that they did, that you would not be here today. So how can you be ashamed of someone who fought for your life? And they've been fighting for your life forever. They kept fighting no matter what. If they didn't fight, you wouldn't be here. So stop making that comment. I am not my ancestor. You are your ancestor's wildest dream, as long as you continue to move forward and do what you're supposed to do. So that's my thought on it.
Even if it's just a matter of we inherited their strength and their fortitude. If that, and even if that's the only thing that we learn about them, we should appreciate and should celebrate that. Sometimes I feel as though I have to be a part-time counselor, like a psychologist and counselor as well, especially with African American clients. I'm working with a client now with deep roots in Edgefield, South Carolina, and one of her ancestors was just shot dead in the street. It was like inquest files and newspaper articles. So as I was writing her report, I thought, I should kind of let her know that this story is coming, because it was a really upsetting story. And to cut a long story short, I sent her an email, I gave her the links, and that's like, I strongly, strongly advise that you wait until you get home from work, that you're in a space that you feel safe and secure, because you are going to have feelings on that. And I find that clients don't really think about that, but every time I've had to do that, they've always replied that they were very thankful for that. But like, you just didn't hit me with this out of the blue. You told me that something awful was going to happen. Was coming my way, and
Right.
you gave me the advice about when I should look at it, and almost giving people permission to have feelings about it.
Yeah, you should have warned her ahead of time just about Edgefield as a whole. That's life. We see that all the time. So Edgefield, you get numb. It's like watching something on TV and it's constant, and now you're numb to it. And whoo, Edgefield is a mess. But I go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to make a comment about Edgefield. Because one of my good friends, her second great grandfather is from there. And I'm doing his.
She's related.
Yeah. So, well, he's a Simpkins. So, the white Simpkins, that the Edgefield advertising.
He's related.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll chat about that offline. But yes, I got a whole thing about Paris Simpkins. Okay. But anyway, okay, what's your next question?
Yeah. So, okay. Well, Henry Goins asks, is Genealogy Roadshow coming back, or did it ever really leave?
So it's not coming back to my knowledge. For whatever reason, one of the things to know about PBS is that the producers of Genealogy Roadshow actually partnered with PBS Corporate. If you think about shows like with Finding Your Roots, it's, I think, WGBH, which is out of Boston. So that's like just think of it as a distributor station. So most PBS shows have a station that sponsors those shows, right? We didn't have a sponsoring station. So therefore, sort of like not really having an advocate to move Genealogy Roadshow forward. So I think it's probably not coming back. I mean, will there be different iterations of it or something like that? I've obviously been working to get something to get back on television since I've been off of television. Because I know a lot of people ask me about that. So I'm trying to get something back. It may not be Genealogy Roadshow, but I have been working on that for the past couple of years. Things take time in TV. So.
Okay. And then LaCrissa Sims, she said, did you use DNA to prove some of your questions?
We did. We did. We did it in the first season more than we did in the second season. I think Genealogy Roadshow was really about us having that mood board and being able to flip and show the documents, because we were really concerned about people because we got a lot of feedback the first year, right? So the first year of the show, we got crucified. I mean, I'm going to be honest, like genealogists were sending us all types of messages about what we did wrong and what we said wrong. We weren't in charge of editing, I mean, we're talent, so we can't edit anything that would be horrific if we were in the editing bay. And so Josh and I were really concerned about the genealogy community, kind of making it seem as though it was easy, us making it seem as though it was easy to do the research, right? So we really wanted to focus on documentation and less on DNA, right? So we really wanted to show the documents, tell people where they can find the documents. But DNA was always in the background, but it was never really a kind of a central focus for the show.
Okay.
And well, I guess staying with that topic, I mean, how do I want to put this? What has been your experience working with DNA analysis in terms of revealing information, or just pointing a direction to a paper trail that you can pick up?
So my experience, I am with DNA, I'm getting obviously more deep into it now. Most people, say, I did my genealogy, and I'm like, oh, you spit in it too. That's not doing genealogy, but whatever. So, people always say that. If you're on a plane somewhere, pre-COVID, and you tell them what you do, that's what they tell you. But I have found that, for me personally, my own family, it verifies relationships, right, that I've already had on paper. It has worked for, I have a friend of a friend who didn't know her father, but took a DNA test, and like literally the first match that comes up is her dad, and she got to meet him, and their parents reunited after 40 years or whatever. So I found that DNA can be useful in verifying information, especially if you're adopted or you don't know anyone. But also DNA can be something that people need to be prepared for. That you may have a half sibling you don't know about. Like, I think people don't realize with genealogy in general, as you were talking about preparing your client for the murder of her ancestor, people need to understand you never know what you're going to find. So it's great. I'm going to go and do a DNA test, and then you get a match that pops up, and you're like, wait a minute, who do I talk to about this half sibling I had that I didn't know about? Or, my dad is not I get people all the time sending me stuff like that. So I think that it's useful, but with anything, getting to the point of psychology, being a psychologist, which we're not trained in, some genealogists are, but a lot of us are not. When we get clients, we are like a counselor. And I talk to my therapist about it because I'm like, I need to figure out how to deal with this when I'm talking to them about it, right? Because give me some tools to help them if I have someone that's murdered, or somebody's, I'm showing them a document, their ancestor was listed under a chair or a table and a value attached to them. Like, these things are traumatic. And so that also comes with DNA, because you may find someone or get a relative that you didn't know was out there.
Right. I agree with what you're saying, because one of the things that I look at when it comes to that, when we have people that contact us, or if I have somebody who wants me to do their research, I always tell them straight off the back, okay, if you're doing DNA, you need to know you don't know what you're going to find. Like, I tell them right off the top, like it's the most important thing. And I think I'm like that because my mom's DNA helped so many. I think to count to date right now, my mom's DNA has helped 10 people with non-paternity events.
Well, I think it's closer to a dozen. I think it's closer to a dozen.
Yeah, you think it's about 12? Yeah, I know 12. My mom's DNA. It has just been that overall that Eve. My mother is an Eve in Edgefield because she connects to everybody. So it's been a whirlwind. And so every time I'm talking to somebody, I'm like, you have to understand that you may find someone that you don't think you never even knew existed. It may happen, and you can't. I'm not saying that you can't be mad about it, but just don't be shocked by it, because you really don't know until it happens. But I wanted, I don't know what you were going to say. So after you say what you're going to say, Brian, I want to get into education with her.
Okay. Really? Well, yeah, absolutely. I just want to finish off on DNA, and that Trudy, an audience member, kind of beat me to the punch. I was also going to say, in terms of using DNA, the chances are fairly high that you are going to have DNA cousins who do not share your melanin level. Who, they don't look like you, they don't pray like you. You just don't know what you're going to find. And some people can take that really, really well. I mean, with my skin tone, I already knew that I was heavily mixed. So when I got my little ethnicity estimate, if there's time at the end of the show, we can talk about ethnicity estimates. But that was no great surprise for me. But I have had white family members, particularly in South Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama, who are horrified that they have African American cousins.
Yeah.
Equally, and I have to be fair, I have worked with African Americans who are horrified that they have white ancestry.
Yep.
So I guess I'm not sure if the question is sort of how do I deal with that or have dealt with that in my own genealogy.
Well, the question was, what is your experience working with Black people and with white or mixed ancestry? Is there cooperation or not identifying these people?
So it's a mixed bag, right? I actually have a project I'm working on right now where the European side, the white side of the family, is ecstatic. Ecstatic that they're related to this person. I mean, like, ridiculous. I've never seen anything like it. Okay. I'm just like, whoa. They are like on it, finding the information, figuring it out, helping doing the research. They're in it to win it type of folks. So that has been the best reaction I've ever had. I have not had, I personally, if not had an experience where anyone wasn't cooperating, if I reached out to them. But I will tell you that for getting to the Simpkins in Edgefield, because of Paris Simpkins, and if you Google him, you'll be able to figure out who he is, because he was Arthur Augustus Simpkins' son. So I have not talked to the white Simpkins. I'm not going to. And I'm pretty sure, based on what I've read, back in the day, that they would not be, as helpful, right? If I went to them for information, even though he acknowledged him as his son. So I think it's a mixed bag of, you may get some people who cooperate and then you get people who don't. When you're doing this work, the one thing I always say is what we're trying to do is find our people. And that's it. I'm not coming to you for reparations. I'm not coming to you for an apology. I'm just trying to find my people. So if you help me find my people, that's it. I mean, that's the level playing field. You're looking for your people. I'm looking for my people. You can help me find my people connected to you. So that's it. I mean, if you approach it in that way, you'll probably get more cooperation. But again, there's some rare times when people actually are excited about it.
Because again, before we move on to education, I know Dawn has got a question for you. My Sheffy, Tolliver, Rome, Price families in Virginia, they were overjoyed. And we've actually become family. So, we know how, we know the reasons why we're related. Don't dwell on that. We've actually just over the years developed a relationship where we're just family. And it's been awesome.
Right.
That's great.
So and as far as the Simpkins is concerned and Edgefield as a whole, don't knock it. You actually may find one that will help you. So definitely try anyway, because there are so many European, Caucasian, whatever you want to call them, whatever you want to call it, they're there to help. And they know, they get it. They really, really get it. We have some awesome researchers in that area that will help in any kind of way. So don't knock it. They just might help you. There are some that are not. That's God's honest truth. Oh my God, the experience. But for me, I do have a lot of white relatives that I am very close with, and one of them just passed on. Her name was Susan Yelton, and it actually hurt me. It really hurt me to lose her, and I'm really sorry that she's gone. But it's it just all depends on the people. But Edgefield as a whole, our Settles family, they're good. This just Edgefield as a whole, don't count them out. They will help you out. There are some that will help you out. But as far as education, you said that you work with schools to get this type of education in schooling. How do you do that? And is there a way for us to do that in our Black schools as well? Because I really feel like that's what's missing. Period. I just feel like that's what's missing.
So a couple of ways that I've done as far as education is that I've done like workshops, right, for kids that have been like in middle school or something like that. And middle schoolers, I think they were like 7th to 8th graders. So I did that when I was in Virginia. I had a workshop where I did that. I haven't done one here in California, but for getting them, it's kind of outside of the curriculum, right? So it's getting into the curriculum for public education is like it's a huge task. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's something that requires such with all of the standards and things they have right now that govern that curriculum. So with that, for middle schoolers, and if you want to do elementary, but I think middle school is probably the sweet spot for them to actually do the research, it would be doing workshops that are attached to or attached to the school, maybe in a sense that it's like the school kind of sponsors it, but it's not part of the curriculum. right? And so
Okay.
that's kind of happened one in Virginia, where it was sort of like, oh, we went to this workshop, we're going to bring all the students here, but it's not actually, it was in a library. It's not actually in the school, right? So that was one. The other thing that I do is I work a lot with universities. So that's my big thing, is working with universities studying slavery. And I think Shelly is on. I think I saw her, Shelly Murphy. She knows this because it's based out of University of Virginia. And they do, so that work with the universities is kind of a way to get that, because they do a lot of summer camps for students, or, have freshmen, new students coming in where they can talk about slavery on campus. That introduces them to that concept, introduces them to acknowledge the enslaved people that built the campus for free, in the places they live. And so with University Studying Slavery and the Films Loom Project, I kind of feel like those are ways in which we can kind of feed the education of American history related to slavery, into the public schools, right? Because we have this big push against the 1619 Project, and they had the 1776 Project. So there's a big push to not talk about it, right? So when you have this push to not talk about it, then you have to find alternative ways. So even before the 1619 Project, it might have been difficult to get stuff into schools. But now, since there was such a visceral reaction to it, it's even more difficult to get it. So the way to do that is to make it through a library sponsored by the school, or through a university with a camp, or, or the university sponsors it. And that way it gives it legitimacy, and it's not just you trying to do it on your own. You know what I'm saying? I'm all about partnering people that have the resources, and the resources and the network to get stuff done.
Okay.
Because again, I think our community as a whole, I think what I hope we've been really, really good as inspiring passion in people to want to do their genealogy, to one, prove that it is possible for African Americans to do their genealogy. Yes, it's challenging, it's hard, you never know what you're going to find, you don't know what little upsetting nuggets, your histories you're gonna stumble across. And I get the sense that you're quite passionate about that too, really inspiring people to go out there and do their research.
I am. I mean, that's one of the things I always said, is that, I don't speak at a lot of conferences, because, I don't want to speak to people already interested in genealogy. I want to speak to people that don't even know about genealogy. You know what I'm saying? To inspire them to do their genealogy, right? So that's been my entire goal. I mean, that's just been it. I don't, I moved to California to start this technology company. I'm still working on the concept, trying to get it done, but related to African American genealogy, because I just want everyone to feel the joy and the wholeness and the fulfillment and just the sense of awe that I get from knowing my ancestors, from looking at them, from knowing Emily, Martha, and Mildred. Like, I want people to know that. And to understand that even if I'm having a bad day, you know what I'm saying? Even if it's something going on, getting on my nerves, it's cloudy in Santa Monica. I'm all upset because it's cloudy in Santa Monica. I'm like, but you know what? The second great grandmother was enslaved, so you can deal with the cloudiness. Like, whatever. It could be anything. It's just like, basically, listen, woman, you're here because of them. And in the sense in that I can tell their story. That's what's so important to me. I mean, if you don't get anything from this conversation, take away telling that person's story. I've written about my third great grandparents, Emily and James Sellers. We don't know if we're Sellers from South Carolina or not, by the way. We're Virginia Sellers. And I've written about them in everything. In like the New York GMB magazine. I did this thing called I Detroit, which is like a book about DNA and people in Detroit. And I've written about them in that. Newspaper articles. Anywhere I can, I tell their story, because that gives them voice. That brings them to life for me. And so that's what's important about all the work that we do. We do this research. We sit in our computers in our rooms and we look online for stuff. But if we just keep it to ourselves, we're doing ourselves a service and our ancestors a service, because we're not telling their stories.
And with that, we are documenting aspects of American history. And yet again, Another hour that has literally flown by. I just wanted to say
Literally.
so pleased and happy to have you on the show.
And
Oh,
you're
well,
always welcome to come back.
for sure, for sure. Thank you so much.
So to everyone at home, thank you as always for spending your hour with us. You will see us right here next week, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. You have a great day. Kenyatta, hang on, okay?
Okay, will do.
Take care.